Hello, everybody. My name is Nancy, and I'm your friendly PM coach. Today, we're talking about acing behavioral and leadership interviews at L6 and above. And the interview prompt for this video is, how do you work with engineering? A lot of candidates are confused about how to answer this question because it seems so trivial and basic at this level. We don't just want to tell the story and answer the question. We also want to demonstrate our leadership and our unique perspective on the situation. That's why I always recommend the BLUF framework, bottom line, up front. So in this video, we talked about how to construct a BLUF statement that shows your seniority level, that draws your interviewer into your story. Here's the clip.
They asked, how do you work with engineering? I tell folks that most of my time should be spent with the engineering team because of the fact that this is where the creation happens and this is where the building happens. So, in order to meet the timelines and unblock my team members, I need to be there when there's a need for product managers to step in. Does it matter that I need to know end to end? How does that product would function? Yes, but I don't need to be the subject matter expert. I need to give them my vision and give them my product subject matter expertise so that they can make the right decision and they're empowered when I'm not available. I need to be able to give them sound advice about any issue that they come forward with.
The reason why I'm triggered with this particular framing is that PM and Eng are not on the same level from this framing. It's like saying they need more support compared to my other stakeholders, maybe research team, maybe design team, maybe marketing team, maybe sales team. The reason why I'm triggered is assuming that you have a very good setup where you have world-class engineers. You actually don't really need to babysit them. You actually don't need to give them advice. It's like saying we know more than them. That is saying that this setup is not a equal setup, that the PM actually has more knowledge than engineering. When there is more of a equal setup, when you have a group of really world-class engineers and world-class designer and world-class everyone, you don't really give advice anymore. You work together to figure out the best solution. Like the energy of this response here is saying that this engineering team is not world-class. So in an interview setting, again, let's zoom out. In the best case scenario, like I said, world-class design team, world-class data, world-class engineer, world-class everyone, then we're all equal partners. We work together to figure out the best solution possible. Steve Jobs tells in his interviews, you have a lot of rough rocks and you work together. You put all the rocks in the same bag and you shake them up. Eventually, over time, each rock turns into the most polished, beautiful stone ever. That is how he sees a product team to operate. That's how he wants his teams to be. But this framing does not give you that. This framing gives you more of a feature factory kind of vibe.
Mhm.
So in an interview setting, you could say, in my experience, I've worked with two types of setups before. One is the empowered, like this might sound very cliche if you read Marty Kagan, but what he says is valid. There's feature factory teams and there's empowered product teams. And the way I collaborate with engineering is different depending on what type of environment that I'm in. That's the BLUF. So then now you could say, okay, when I'm in a feature factory situation, that is where engineering either does not have opinions or they don't feel empowered to have opinions. That's where the requirements need to be very clear and they'll just do what the requirements say. That's where the PM writes very detailed requirements, try to be as specific as possible down to the pixel level. And the engineering would just build according to the specs. In that setup, the PM is more of a project manager, and they spend a lot of time with engineering to make sure requirements are well understood so that there's no confusion. What happens in that situation is there could be a lot of finger pointing at the end because engineering would not feel the ownership over what's in the spec because they're just doing what the specs say. And then if the outcome is not what was expected, then engineering would say, I just did what's on the spec. So like, don't blame me. I did whatever the specs say. That is a feature factory setup. But in a empowered product team setup, that's not how it works. In an empowered team setup, PM actually doesn't spend that much time writing requirements because we're working together to figure out the requirements together, like bag of rocks situation. So how do I collaborate with engineering really depends on the setup.
This is great.
So there you go. That's how you could go about constructing your own BLUF statement for each behavioral and leadership interview question. Most candidates would answer the question by using a framework like STAR or one of its cousins, and they start talking about the situation, which is the S. When you start your story by immediately starting with the situation and here's what happened, it's very, very easy to start thinking only about details before we hook the interviewer into our story. And that's why the BLUF framework is so powerful. By starting your interview question this way, you're more likely to draw your interviewer into your story because there's just so much more depth and thinking in your responses. And that's what we need to see for L6 and above candidates. Hope this video is helpful, and I invite you to think about which BLUF statements you would use in your next interviews. If you want some help in acing PM interviews in big tech at L6 and above, you could join our free community that has a lot of free resources and monthly roundtables. The link is in the description box, and I'll see you there. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. See you in our community and also in our next video. Take care.